You have a chapter in this book titled Jeffrey Epstein Didn't Kill Himself. Lots of us, me included, certainly think that's the case, but what evidence do you have that supports it?
Well, here's the thing. We still don't really know for sure. So it's a theory of mine based on the information that I know about. And, you know, there's a lot of people, of course, that believe the same thing. Epstein's brother, for example, Mark, Epstein's lawyers, who were among the last to see him, don't believe he committed suicide. And knowing Epstein the way that I have gotten to know him through all the research that I've done, this was a man who really believed he was above the law, who had a lot of political connections. This is very early on in his case. It seems way too early for him to have thrown in the towel. And then aside from that, the doctor, the forensic pathologist that reviewed the autopsies, in fact, he was at the autopsy, Dr. Michael Baden has also ruled that he doesn't believe that this was a suicide. Now, it could have been an assisted suicide. It could have been, a question of whether he hired somebody, perhaps, or somebody hired somebody to kill him. But there's just too many coincidences. I mean, he had just gotten out of suicide watch. His cellmate was removed right before this happened. 2 of the guards were allegedly asleep or distracted. The video disappeared. He had 3, not 1, but 3 bones broken in his neck. Now, this was a man who had everything done for him, almost down to his butlers tying his shoelaces. The idea that he would be able to do that by tying bed sheets to the top bunk of his cell and pull hard enough to break 3 bones in his neck, and then leave all the items that were sitting on the top bunk undisturbed, raises a lot of questions about, exactly how he died.
Which is why the idea that he killed himself makes very little sense. And what makes a lot of sense is the scores of very powerful people who didn't want their names out there, who don't want to be tied to this. So that's my question. Lots of powerful people in media, in politics, in business, in Hollywood, whose names have been circling around Epstein for the last few years. But no one's really gotten in trouble besides his alleged accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Is there any reason to believe any of these other power names are actually going to face any consequences? For the most part, right now, you and I are talking about this. They're in their C-suite offices and on their yachts.
What's kind of ironic about this is that the only people really that have paid any price and suffered as a result of this case are women, all the way down to the prosecutors who handled this, the state female prosecutors. Her career was destroyed. The federal female prosecutor, Anne-Marie Villafana, was basically forced out of there, had to take another job. There's just, victims themselves. And so, it is disconcerting that the only people that seem to have paid a price in this so far are women.
And do you think that'll be the case going forward besides reputational risk? Nobody else? And Ghislaine aside, any of these big guys, nobody were actually going to pay a price?
That's hard to say. I hate to say this, but, it's going to be very hard for them to, I think, try to, connect all the dots with all the important people. A lot of people are keeping their mouth shut, including the women, and it's understandable. I mean, the women that I know of that were involved with some of these powerful men have watched as the ones that were brave enough to come forward have been pretty much attacked and crucified. So they don't want that to happen to their lives. So it has further silenced people who have information.
Then what does it seem like it's going to happen to Ghislaine Maxwell? She is still behind bars in a Brooklyn jail, but she recently mentioned Bill Cosby in her latest attempt to get out. What does that tell you? Not that she's going to argue her innocence, but some sort of legal technicalities, because that's how he got out.
Yes, that's exactly what she's going to do. She's going to find a legal loophole, and she's already trying to use. the loophole that she was perhaps one of those. Remember, his plea deal included a very strange mechanism where they gave immunity not only to Epstein and his known co-conspirators, but also to co-conspirators who have not been named. So her lawyers are going to argue that she's one of the co-conspirators that were not named that should also receive immunity. Of course, federal prosecutors are arguing that she wasn't covered by that agreement. So we'll have to wait and see.